Hello there, good evening, and welcome to the late tackle from FPL BlackBox. What do you reckon, Andy? Welcome again to the Thursday night layback chat.
Oh no, I'm so happy to be here again. And I like the new name as well. I thought the some of the names that the community came up with were quite good as well. But I thought the late tackle was just nice. I like it.
Yeah, siving down those late questions for the FPL community. I quite like it. So we'll give it a go. We'll see how that settles in, beds in. Quite a lot to talk about tonight. We were just chatting about the topics. I mean, Salah's broken today. There's a lot of gossip about that. So we're gonna chat about, I guess, what the impact of that would be on FPL and my team, of course, because my team is all that matters. But yeah, I mean that would be a pretty massive story. But there's quite a few topics that we think will come up in the questions, right, Andy?
Yeah, just a few. I think we're gonna try and touch on quite a few of them. Then look at our teams, like you said. And I mean, Man United mids. We've got to talk about them because a lot of people are getting a bit bored of them, to be perfectly honest, because they're not doing much. Do we get rid of them? Do we keep them? Going to be talking about Salah, like you said. Going to be talking about Pedro. Pedro seems to be on everybody's lips at the moment, including mine, and that's a dilemma that I wanted to talk to you about tonight as well. So there's quite a few things that we do want to talk about. There's also quite a few like wild cards and that running around now at the moment
already.
as well. So
yeah,
already, and they're looking quite good too. So yeah, there's quite a few things we're going to talk about.
Okay, so if you're in the chat, get your questions in. As you see, we've got the chat on screen there. We'll be highlighting some of the best questions that we pick out as we go. Let's start. I mean, we should start by looking at your team because obviously Az and I had a moment in the spotlight with last night's Black Box. But let's have a look at your team and how you did this week. 47, beat both Az and myself. Just a mare from Andy. Yeah. But, I mean, it was a funny old week, wasn't it? And I think 47's an okay score.
Yeah, I was fairly happy with it, to be honest. It's like I'm just kind of staying with the group at the moment. I think I dropped down a 1.5, but I'm not too bothered about rank at the moment. The thing I was most happy with was that I obviously went for that triple Brighton. Pedro obviously came on and got booked. But apart from that, Matoma, I'm so glad I went with, and obviously a Estupiñán's there as well. So I'm glad I'm getting the results from their early fixtures, which I wanted to attack those, which is great. I mean, the United boys and the Arsenal mids as well, that you've got to be disappointed with that. I spent a lot of money on those four, and they haven't really done much. Saka could now be off pens. Might not be, but could be. Obviously, Odegaard took the penalty. Martinelli didn't look amazing, but Jesus is back. Maybe that makes a big difference for Martinelli because
he was training today, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think that was a big thing. Saliba's obviously been a big swing there, bringing Saliba in 2 minutes before deadline.
You had to open that can of worms, didn't you? I'm not moaning about the Gabriel thing again, but yeah, obviously that's a swing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, keepers is a bit disappointed, but there's not an awful lot of keepers I would have gone for that have done better, if that makes sense. It's all looking okay. Obviously, Chelsea's a big one. A lot of people have got on Chelsea quickly and got their assets in, and obviously haven't really performed at all yet. So it's interesting. Obviously, I got Chilwell, Colwill, quite happy with those moving forward, but they're not doing anything at the moment. And one of the main players I want to get in this week is Jackson, and he's not done anything either at the moment.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions about him tonight. Just for those listening on the pod, your team is Turner, Chilwell, Saliba, Estupiñán, Martinelli, Rashford, Matoma, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Haaland was your captain, and João Pedro. And then you had Colwill, Shaw, on Sula on the bench. How close were you to getting Mbeumo? Was it Mbeumo or Matoma? Was it a straight choice for you?
Yeah, so basically I had Matoma and Mbeumo the whole pre-season.
Did you?
And then Jesus got injured. Do you remember I said, and that had an effect on my 6.5 million striker? And I was really happy going in with both of them. And I had Mbeumo then instead of Matoma. And then Maddison started looking really good. And I said, right, I'm going to want Maddison after game week 3. So I'm going to go Matoma, get those 3 lovely fixtures, then move to Maddison. And to be honest, Mbeumo's obviously done very well. Matoma's done absolutely fine. I've been really happy with Matoma. So 50-50, obviously Mbeumo's on penalties and he's had 2 penalties. And that's been the big difference. But Mbeumo's a weird one because I think a lot of people are getting him in this week. I think it's a trickier fixture this week.
Oh, yeah, Palace. We showed last night on BlackBox that since Hodgson arrived, Palace have been the best defence in the Premier League. 0.75 XG conceded. Crazy. 12 goals in the 12 games that Hodgson's taken charge. The fewest shots conceded as well, an average of 8 per match. So better defensively than City in terms of the data. yeah, I don't think that's an easy fixture anymore. We've got to look at Palace home and away as being a game that they're not whipping boys. You know, I think Brentford. Yeah. If Brentford get 2 or 3 goals, I've really got to start taking them very seriously. And then it might, you know, we're saying, oh, it's Wissa or it's Mbeumo. You don't want both. Maybe you do if they're going to carry on scoring goals at the regularity. But I think, you know, the Fulham game was a bit of an outlier. I mean, it was a horrendous mistake by Issa Diop for the first goal, soft penalty for the second goal, and then they were down to 10 men and got caught late for the third goal. So that 3-0, I don't think you can take that as what we're going to see typically. I think this will be a really good test of Brentford, actually. If they beat Palace by a couple of goals, we really have got to maybe at least get one of Mbeumo and Wissa if we haven't got them already, maybe even consider both.
Wow, especially with the next fixture being Bournemouth at home as well. Yeah. I mean, if they manage to break down Palace and, like you said, score a couple of goals, I think it's going to be really hard to not bring him in. Yeah. Initially, what I'm thinking of is I'm probably going to bring in Foden in game week 4.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, I want in on that. Those City boys, and I've got 2 free transfers I'll potentially use in 4. So it will be getting like Gavardio and Foden or something like that in. And if I do, it's because I don't get Mbeumo. And that's obviously my worry, is going into that game without Mbeumo and he's got Bournemouth at home and he's going to be, 20% owned by then?
Yeah, and it's the soft pens as well. We looked at penalty data last night and I think penalties are up. Like it's been 0.47 per game compared to 0.26, which it was last season. Very small sample, but there's no doubt, once again, we've seen referees just struggle a bit for where the threshold is on the penalties, isn't it? It's like, I mean, like the handball that Bruno, you know, the handball that United didn't get at Spurs, how was that not a penalty? And yet, there's been a couple of softies, hasn't there, where you just think,
big time.
That wouldn't have been given.
It always happens, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I suppose this is why you pick pen takers.
Yeah,
like this is exactly it. And people said, I don't care. I'm going with Mbeumo. He's on penalties. Brentford are a team that traditionally did get penalties. Fair enough. You know, and he's got 2 penalties in the first 2.
Yeah, I mean, it is fair enough, but we'll see if it continues. I mean, normally the referees have a meeting, don't they, over the international break? Then they come back off the international break and suddenly you can't get a penalty for love nor money. So I'm sure it will soon shift. But yeah. One thing, there's a few members in the chat and we should give a shout out to the latest Black Box members. Can you believe, Andy, people pay us for this, for this, and in particular for the stuff me and Az do? Can they believe they pay for that? God. It's ridiculous. We didn't expect the reaction that we've been getting, but even today, there's been 5 new members for the Godfather tier. So as we've got to do welcome videos for these folk, and then they get in the WhatsApp chat and they see the. They see the futility of the lives that Az and I live throughout the day and throughout matches and so on. So it's been good fun with our members in the WhatsApp chat, and there's more to be added. Thank you to Paul Norris, to Pratik, Mohanty, to Shiv Moraja, Tom Gould, and Just a Dad Posting, who are our latest members for FPL BlackBox. Thank you very much for your support. We're very, very grateful. Welcome videos will be recorded probably at the weekend or just before BlackBox next week. And once again, thanks for your support, and hopefully some of you are in the chat tonight. There's the questions coming in. I think we should talk about Jackson first of all, because I've seen some questions about. There was a question earlier about Jackson or Foden. Jackson or Alvarez. Yeah. Now, I've seen earlier you posted on Twitter about you fancy Alvarez. I've got Alvarez now. I couldn't afford Jackson. Where do you stand if you have the money for either? Where would you go?
See, the biggest thing is I don't even think it's just a 2-pronged question anymore.
No? Okay, who do you want to throw in there with it then? Go on.
Exactly. So obviously it's Jackson or Alvarez. There's also Wissa, like we've said.
Yeah.
But there's also, if you're looking to upgrade Pedro for them, do you just keep Pedro? He is now, with Enciso out, going to be playing more than the potential 60 minutes, which is what we thought, maybe going into 80 minutes, and he's on penalties. And all of a sudden it's thinking, do we really want to get rid of a striker from the best attacking team in the league at the moment on penalties, playing against West Ham at home?
Yeah, I'm going to bring the ticker up at this point because I think that it's worthwhile just having the fixtures on the screen. So the reason why Jackson's getting traffic is Luton and Forest, right? 2 home games coming up. But equally, Alvarez has fantastic next 2, Sheffield United away and Fulham at home. And Fulham at home, Fulham are probably looking like the defence to target at the moment because, you know, they've got injuries at the back. Ream will miss the game week 3. He'll be back for game week 4. But Paulina hasn't played the first 2 games. We imagine he'll be in the side this weekend, so maybe they will firm up. But at the moment, Sheffield United and Fulham probably just as good as Luton and Forest in terms of the ease of those fixtures, and obviously City, we'd expect them to carry a bit more threat than Chelsea. Chelsea have got the potential, haven't they? But they're still finding their feet, and Jackson in particular, we're not yet convinced. Well, I don't know whether you've gone Jackson, but if you had, how confident are you going into those 2 games?
And it's just about the fixtures, because when you look at Luton and Nottingham Forest at home, even though, like you just said, with Man City, those other 2 fixtures look quite nice. It's so hard to look past Luton and Nottingham Forest at home. It really, really is. And I think, like you said, Forest don't keep clean sheets away from home. Luton, I'd be absolutely shocked if they kept a clean sheet away at Chelsea. So who is going to score the goals? And Jackson he's just there or thereabouts. My mate's a Chelsea fan, and he said the goals will come, but it's just taking time. They bought a whole new squad again, basically, haven't they? So it's going to take time, and it's whether it clicks now. This run is lovely, and obviously if you're going to jump on a Chelsea player, I feel like it makes sense to do it early. Yeah. But you're doing it and getting away from maybe other players that also have nice fixtures. That's the thing. And I've said it on Scoutcast on Monday. I'm unconvinced about Jackson at the moment.
Are you?
Mainly because I also worry that they could still sign someone. That's the thing. Like everything that keeps getting said in the media is that they're still looking for that striker. And I don't think they see Jackson as that person that's going to, propel them into the top 4 or is going to get them 20, 30 goals a season. I don't think they see him as that. Broz is obviously back, but he's going to take a while to come back anyway. And I wonder whether we're looking at Jackson. I mean, we're not going to want him for ages, are we? I suppose we're just going to want him for those 4 to 5 weeks. I don't know. There's something in the back of my head that's saying, if you've got Pedro, just keep Pedro.
Yeah, I think with the Enciso news now, because it looks like he's going to be maybe out for the season. I did get rid of Pedro. It was a double move with Gabriel and Pedro out because they were both dropping, and Alvarez was going up. So it would have been a 0-3 swing, which I just couldn't live with that. I know people say money doesn't matter, but it does for me because I've got 0 in the bank with Salah. So I made those moves. I like to preserve team value early on in the season because I know that it might not matter now, but it could easily matter in a few weeks, or wild carding, or certainly second half of the season. So I made those moves. But had I got the Enciso news at that point, I think I would have held fire on the Pedro transfer. Probably would have got Gabriel, saved the second transfer until now and made it a bit later. Because I do think Pedro now, when you look at the fact that surely he's likely to start this West Ham game, and then it is Newcastle at home, United away. Okay, not the easiest fixtures. And I guess you can say that we're yet to see Brighton against a strong side, I guess. I guess they're yet to be tested. So the lack of Caicedo and McAllister, we're yet to see the impact of that. But I still think what we've seen so far suggests they're a force, aren't they, going forward? I mean, I saw some stats today. And in terms of attacking football, De Zerbi has been outstanding, in what he's got from this team.
Yeah, he really is. And the other thing I keep thinking is, for a lot of people, is that they can just hold Pedro, even if it's just for this week, and then he can become the third striker. You can upgrade your third striker up to a Wissa. You can, whatever it is. It just feels like Pedro is a little bit of a gift this year, especially if Enciso's out. And it sounds like Enciso might even be out for the season. It really is going to be long term. And I just get the impression Pedro is going to play more. The only thing that does worry me is that De Zerbi did come out after the game when he was asked why did Pedro not play, and he said he needs to learn a bit more of the game and he needs to learn how we're playing. And that doesn't say to me I'm going to play him now, just because one player's injured, I'm going to play him all the time. That says to me, De Zerbi's like, no, he's not quite there yet. He's still young, and I'm not going to be playing him all the time. Yeah. Even with the Enciso injury, I still don't think his expected minutes is going to go from 60, which is pretty much what it is at the moment, to 80 all of a sudden. I think it might get a slight bump, but I still don't think he's going to be that 5.5 amazing striker that's going to play every week.
Even in Brighton, even in an attacking team, he's not yet what we would say a prolific goal scorer, right?
No.
And I guess Jackson and Alvarez aren't prolific goal scorers either. But the thing about Alvarez is he's a creative player. He's taking set pieces and he's playing for City. Yeah. Jackson is a goal scorer. Is he a Premier League prolific goal scorer? We don't know yet. And he's playing in a team which is, being pieced together bit by bit. Wissa is certainly looking like he can be a Premier League goal scorer, around 10, 15 goals. Watkins already is a proven Premier League goal scorer. Mm-hmm. So is Pedro really in that bracket? Is he really in that 10 to 15 goals bracket, which I think those four probably will. I think those four will come somewhere between 10 and 15 goals this season. I don't know about Pedro. I think Pedro could fall short of double figures, even in that Brighton team, depending on how many starts he gets over the season. And plus the fixtures, when you look at the fixtures that Jackson and Alvarez have got, I do think it's probably worth the short-term move to one of those two, because Chelsea and City could really cash in over these next 2 game weeks with those fixtures. So I do think, don't beat yourself up if you have moved off him and you've now seen the Enciso news and think, what have I done? Because the other thing is Cameron Archer is moved to Sheffield United. So you no longer need Pedro as the enabler, do you, up front? You can go to Cameron Archer. So in many ways, the way forward might be a Haaland and then one of Alvarez, Jackson, Watkins or Wissa, and then Archer as your third striker. So Pedro, in that setup, doesn't quite get a look in, because then you can go obviously Matoma or March in midfield. So I don't think you've done a bad move if you got rid of Pedro, but
no.
So I don't know. Where do you stand on if you Jackson's going up tonight? That's all the talk, right? If you haven't made the move yet and you've got 2 transfers and you've got Pedro, would you move? Would you move to Jackson tonight?
Well, I've been thinking about this.
This is a late tackle.
The last 3 days. I was absolutely set on making the move. Like, absolutely set on it. And then obviously everything came out in CISO and I was like, it does bump Pedro up. And I was expecting Pedro to start this game anyway. It's just the fact he's on pens, I think. It just puts his floor up that little bit more. And every time I look at it, so I've been using FPL Team an awful lot. I always do. It's brilliant if anybody hasn't used it already. And every time I look at it, the next couple of weeks looks so much better when I've got Jackson. Like, every time I'm doing my team, it's like, that's lovely, that's lovely, that's lovely.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I got Pedro, I'll probably bench him. So the long-term move is to get Jackson. It's just whether I'm happy to do it this week. I think I'll still do it because I don't want to be priced out of it. I've got 1.5 in the bank, so I can do the move straight away. And I think I'm just future-proofing myself a bit. Like, Jackson could match Pedro, and I'm loving life. The only time it goes wrong is if Pedro gets 2 penalties and they absolutely demolish who they're playing. It could happen, but I think it's the move. If you can do it, because you're going to want to move to Jackson the next week anyway. So I think it's the move.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And what about Gabriel? Where do you stand on that? If you had Gabriel or Reece James, surely it's Reece James you get out first out of that because of the injury, because we know from his background, and surely Pochettino's not going to rush him back. Even I look at it and think he could be back after the international break, but even then I think Chelsea are going to be very careful getting him back in. And the way he has to play for Chelsea in that role, that's the thing. If he played the right centre-back, I think that they could think about bringing him back earlier. But because he plays that wing-back role or full-back role, and because he's so central to the way they attack, and he has to make those lung-bursting runs or hamstring-bursting runs, I think they've got to be careful with him. So you get rid of James first, don't you? I think that's a given, and we'll talk about replacements there in a minute. Gabriel, though, I mean, he didn't play at Palace, but do you look at it and think, well, Zinchenko's got to start this next game against Fulham, and therefore Gabriel just comes back in at left centre-back? Or are you in the school of thought, which is now Gabriel's not as nailed on going forward as he used to be, and he's always going to be a bit of a risk?
I think he's going to come back in now, personally. I think because of the injuries. Like you said, I think Zinchenko comes back at left back and then he just slots in at left centre-back. I think from what I've seen, I think Arteta came out and said there was no issue, it was just tactical. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think he was also maybe a little bit annoyed. His head was turned a little bit as well. I think if it was me and I had Gabriel, I think I'd keep him, especially if I had James. James would be the first one gone. But I think Gabriel is someone maybe you could keep this week and then maybe see what happens this week. If it happens again this week, he's not getting in anytime soon because there's no reason for him not to start this weweek.
Yeah, but, and he's got a good goal record against Fulham. Nigel said he's got 3 goals in 5. I think it is 3, maybe 3 and 4. And Fulham don't look in great shape. They may not score at the Emirates. I think a clean sheet looks good. I think that I think there's merit in keeping him, particularly if you can gain elsewhere. Mate. The other thing, I guess the thing is though, is like if you've got the other thing we should talk about is United assets. If you've got Rashford and Bruno, and as you know, it surprised me when he sold Bruno, which is one of the moves that he's made. I guess if you're not getting rid of Gabriel and you're not getting rid of Pedro and you've got 2 free transfers, you're left looking at probably either changing your keeper or you're looking at one of the 2 United players and going, do I move off them to an Odegaard or an Mbumo? Where do you stand on the United boys? You're a United fan. Obviously, the fixtures go Forest at home now, and then they're away at Arsenal. So this next fixture is probably crucial to the traffic that we'll see with Bruno and Rashford. If they blank again, then we're going to see big sales. What are you doing with them, and what would you advise others to do with them?
Do you know what? I think even if they do really well this week, I think they're going to be mass sales anyway. I think that's my plan, because obviously they're playing Arsenal next week. Lots of people are going to have lots of Man United assets versus lots of Arsenal assets. That never looks good when you're looking at your team. And even after that, they got Brighton at home. It doesn't look too good again until game week 6, really. So I think moving Rashford and Bruno on in game week 4 makes an awful lot of sense. But I don't think you get rid of them this week. It'd be an interesting lineup this week. Mount's obviously out, so Eriksen's most likely going to play. I would have thought next to Casemiro, and then Bruno will get forward. Eriksen being there is good for Bruno. Eriksen doesn't have the legs, so he will step out. He's not like Mount that he can make those runs all day. So that's good. I'm kind of expecting Martial to play, and I think if Martial plays, Rashford on the left, and then I think people are going to be gutted when they see the lineup and they see Rashford on the left, because that's what we've all been looking for. So if Rashford's on the left and Bruno's getting forward more, and you've sold one of them before that game, I think you're going to be kind of watching it behind your sofa and just hoping they don't punish you. And this is kind of almost what happens with FPL a lot, isn't it? You sell them this 1 week too early, they do really well, and then you sell them. So I think holding them is definitely the play. But if I had both and I had 2 free transfers and I wanted to get money to go up to a player,
which of the 2 would you go?
Well, that's it. Rashford's the one I get rid of.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Bruno's, he's got over 2 XGI so far this season. I think he's top for people that haven't. Where is he?
There he is, right at the top. That 106. So he's the top midfielder for XGI non-penalty per 90. I mean, I think it's at the Spurs game that he got a lot of those numbers. He was prominent in that game, but he missed a sitter. So obviously the XG return on that. I think you're right. The 0.5 difference, and Rashford, I think, needs a goal to get going, get the kick. The issue is if Martial plays, and I think he will because Højlund's likely to be on the bench, and I think it makes sense then to start the game with Martial. He'll go off after the 55 an hour as we expect, and then we'll see Højlund come on. I think you're right. I don't think obviously I'm biased, but I don't think Forest will be the pushovers they were against United last season. I mean, of all the sides that we played, United, we just couldn't lay a glove on United. I think tomorrow will be different. Saturday will be different. I think that we showed at Arsenal we've got a little bit more, we're a bit more robust. So I reckon it'll be 2-1. That's what I'm gone for. I don't think it'll be a 3 or 4-0. But I think you're right. I think if I had both, it would be Rashford I was going to move out if I wasn't selling Gabriel or Pedro. But if I had just one of them, I'd hold. Because I don't think it's the fixture to sell. I mean, they got Arsenal next, so that's where you're looking to move them out, isn't it? I think that's fair enough. We've had a few questions that piqued my interest. Ron Manager says, do you think Brentford and Brighton should be targeted heavily at the moment? How well do you think they're doing? I mean, we spoke about Brighton and the 2 games they've had so far. Same for Brentford, really. I think it's too early, isn't it? How much stock do you put in 2 weeks' data? Because I saw today Sky Sports did an analysis of Luton Town, and they put down this is where they rank 20th for goals, 19th. It's like one game, right? So, we've got to be careful, haven't we, making too many decisions off 2 weeks of data, right?
I mean, this happens throughout the season, though, doesn't it? Like, I think there's a famous quote, isn't there, saying that there's always a club that's in turmoil every week. You just got to hope you're not the one, and that's literally what happened. After 2 weeks, I mean, everybody's saying United are rubbish. Everybody's saying, they need to be green on the fixture ticker. This exact same thing happened last year. And then all of a sudden they beat Arsenal, they beat Liverpool, and they went on a lovely run for a little bit then. this is just how it happens. Like, and it's not all of a sudden after 2 weeks a team is good or a team is bad. We've still got those teams to target. Like Luton should be targeted, Fulham should be targeted and stuff. But I still think you should just look at the fixtures as they are. And Man United against Nottingham Forest is still a good fixture because we're at home, we're going to be attacking, and you would expect some goals, like you said. I think 2-1's a good prediction, to be perfectly honest. That or 5-0. So yeah.
To Ron's point on Brighton, though, if you look at their run, these next 6 games up to game week 8, and game week 8 is important because that's the second break, and that might be when a lot of wildcards are played. I look at that and go, West Ham at home, yes, that's a good fixture. We don't really know what we're going to get from West Ham. It was obviously a good result last time out against Chelsea. I think Brighton do win that game. And if you've got Matoma, March and Pedro, you could fancy returns there. But the run after that, Newcastle United, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Liverpool at home, there's some tests in there, isn't there? Yeah. I don't think... I mean, obviously Bournemouth at home, we don't really know what Bournemouth are at the moment. Their identity, I think, they've made some good signings. Tyler Adams in particular, I think, will make them a lot more difficult to beat. They'll concede fewer chances. So I don't think they're going to be the blue fixture here, but I don't think they're a whipping boy. I don't think they're going to even be flirting with relegation. I think they're going to be fairly safe. So I think that run for Brighton's quite tough. So if you didn't have any Brighton, because I've sold João Pedro, I don't have Matoma, would you be panicking that you've got to get a Brighton player in that run?
I don't think so, because they've got Europe as well, haven't they? Yeah, so they've got European ties in between those. Yeah, and for me, I was looking at it, and like I said, looking at my team for the next 6-7 weeks, whatever it is, I'm not going to be playing Pedro an awful lot anyway, which makes me feel happier getting rid of him, although it feels like it could be a week early. Matoma, I always feel like is somebody you can get rid of and jump on when the fixtures are lovely anyway, because there's so many midfielders we want. Estupiñán's the only one I feel like I could hold if I needed to. He might be my placeholder for Trippier. That could happen. But also, I'm just looking at him and thinking, he's so attacking.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, he's going up. It's ridiculous. And I don't feel like he's going to change that much in difficult fixtures either. So when he goes up against like a Newcastle or a Man United away or a Villa or whatever it is, I still think he's going to be that attacking. So I feel like he's somebody you can hold. Whereas the Matoma, I feel like you can just move to another midfielder if you want to attack the fixtures, like a Foden or a Mbeumo. And Pedro, like I said, you can either get rid now, or you can just keep him on your bench as that 5.5 million striker that can come on. I love Brighton, but I think they are a team for me that I'm just going to target when the fixtures are nice still as well, because you can. It's so easy to jump on them.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I mean, they have, looking at the calendar, we've got Brighton will play in Europe on the week of the 19th in the Europa League, so ahead of game week 6. So it'll be after the United game that they will play their European tie before they play Bournemouth. So they're going into their easiest fixture amongst that batch, having played in Europe. So I think you're right. I agree with you on Brighton. What about Brentford? Because that run there, Palace, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, Forest, United, that doesn't look as harsh as Brighton's run. And for me, aside from this Palace fixture, I'm not put off by what's left. Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton, Forest and Man United. I think they're a counter-attacking team. And even at Newcastle, even at Forest and Old Trafford, I think I'd still be tempted by an Mbeumo or a Wissa. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we're thinking about it too much and we should just all get Mbeumo. Like, he's on pens. He's at a team that plays a good level of football all the time. They've been so consistent in the league, and the fixtures, like you said, are lovely. That I am wondering whether we're trying to be a bit cute when we're getting someone like Foden in, whose X minutes still could be not what we expect them to be, whereas Mbeumo's it's just all lined up perfectly until Tony comes back. So, yeah, I think if that might be one of those things where people that maybe don't play the game as much as us or think about it quite as much as us will go, oh, and Mbeumo's got loads of points, I'm going to get him in. And we're like, nah, we'll get Foden or we'll get someone else. And Mbeumo will just carry on smashing it all the way up to game week 7. I
think part of it is, I mean, I went with Richarlison and Diaby. I really like Diaby. I still think, he'll come good. Richarlison was a gamble and I was taken in, really. I mean, I did have Mbeumo until I swapped to Richarlison. And I think a lot of that was just, I was dazzled by he's playing up front. The new manager's got an attacking style of football. Spurs are going to score loads of goals. Maddison looks good. And Richarlison has just had very few touches, not really had any opportunities. And, in the meantime, Mbeumo has smashed it with the 2 pens and the tap-in. And I can't let that get in the way. I can't be stubborn and go, no, I'm not going to move to Mbeumo. Because in previous seasons, I've done that. I've gone, it's too late now. I've missed his points. I'm not going to move there. But I do think Mbeumo is a player over the season that will still makes a lot of sense, even though you've missed those 3 goals. You've got to swallow your pride, haven't you?
He's still low owned as well. It's not like you're jumping on somebody that's like 50, 60% owned and you're not going to be getting many of his points. He's still like, he's not even 20% owned yet. So you're still going to be getting the majority of his points when you get him in, and it's going to give you that rank rise you want as well. And if he continues to get at points, it doesn't matter. You get someone like that in, and like you said, the 4 of those next 5, you can conceivably see him scoring in 4 of those next 5. So it's I think maybe we're trying to be a bit too cute, and maybe he should just be coming in.
Yeah, get your questions in. We're still going to keep going, me and Andy, until we into the another 20 minutes at least. I would say.
Yeah,
you got that in you, Andy. You're all right. You got your side.
Oh, I have, mate. Yeah, I'm all right.
You're absolutely fine. So a question here from Nigel Sortland, Scandinavian viewer, I would guess. Should we start looking at Newcastle assets soon? They've been off the radar, haven't they? Because we didn't get on board because of the opening 2 fixtures. Obviously, Isak got a lot of mainstream transfers after his double in the first fixture. Their run: Liverpool at home this week, Brighton away, Brentford at home, Sheffield United away, Burnley, West Ham. There's a good cluster of fixtures there. I think they're more or less fixture proof. Like, we've got to think they're going to be challenging top 6 again. They've started the season very well. Who is the standout Newcastle asset for you at the moment? Because Trippier not in any conversations at the moment, so I don't think it's him. One of the forwards, one of the midfielders, or are you kind of tempted by Trips?
Oh yeah, Trippier. Yeah,
are you?
It's Trippier. I want to get in, and you look at funds just seem quite easy at the moment, and so moving one of my defenders, so whether it's Shaw or Stupinan, whoever it is, up to Trippier, I'm going to be wanting to do that probably from game week 6. I think game week 5 might be a tad too early. They got Brentford at home, which is fine, but from game week 6, Sheffield United and Burnley, I think that's quite a nice time to get them in. Isak does make sense, but if you're looking at, you've already got Haaland and Jackson might already be there as well. I don't know whether people will be moving off Jackson, and I don't think people will be moving to 3 up front. No. So I don't think that's the way people will go. And midfielders, I think it's hard to pick a Newcastle midfielder over any of those kind of standard ones that we've all got, if that makes sense.
I want to go Anthony Gordon. He's the flair pick.
Oh, don't
because he had that great under-21 tournament. He started really strongly, but he's got Harvey Barnes breathing down his neck.
Exactly.
So you can't, can you? I think you're right about the midfield. Tonali, I guess, he's the new signing. He's getting forward. He's more box-to-box than I imagined. But I just can't see it. For me, I think you're right. It'll be Isak or Trippier, but at the moment, I think there's people ahead of him in the queue. You mentioned, actually, Andy, that Trippier could be someone you look at because you might move Luke Shaw out. Have you seen the news that's just broke in the chat? Luke Shaw is out for a lengthy period, apparently. Now, I don't know. I mean, this could be a leak. This could be a black box first, Andy. But that's the news. I presume that's breaking maybe from the hotel picks because of the United
David
often
Ornstein.
stay. Yeah. So what are you going to do there? Is that a problem for you this week?
No, because I was benching him anyway. Just trying to think who's going to play left back. Well, it's going to be Dallo because Malassia's out as well.
Is Malassia out, is he?
So it'll probably be Dallo and then Wan-Bissaka on the right.
Ooh, B's got to fancy that. Running at Dallo, out of position, I reckon. But I think that's if B plays. He might not play because he could be on his way to Spurs or Chelsea.
There's been so many injuries, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Brandon Williams has just gone as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's gone on loan as well. So Luke Shaw is looks like he's out for a lengthy period of time, which follows on from the Enciso injury. We're seeing. You're right. We're seeing quite a few early season injuries. What's happened there? Like the pre-season not been affected. I've got to say, United didn't look fit in the opening 2 games. Did you think that as well?
We haven't even had a major tournament. That's the thing. Like sometimes you get a major tournament and people just aren't ready to come back. But yeah, I don't know what's happened, to be honest. A muscular injury is expected to be sidelined. Yeah,
RT Whitby giving us the news there from David Ornstein. Because United played a couple of friendlies behind closed doors, did you notice? Mm-hmm. And I think that is a reaction to them going, Jesus, we're well short. We've got to get some more minutes in the legs. Because I think
we lost 3-0 to Burnley.
Yeah, I saw that. Morale boosting loss to the Clarets there. It was a second string team though, to be fair. So I think that we've got to be mindful of that because it's another trend that we're seeing early on is a few injuries and nasty long-term ones as well. So unfortunate if you've got Shaw on your team, but if you have got Shaw and you haven't made your transfers, then there's some good targets to go for, of course. Who would you go for? I mean, like, I guess the Stupinan if you don't have him. I'll bring the defenders data up while we're talking about this. Chilwell and the Stupinan if you don't have them, but you've got to think that people have. What about old Rico Henry?
Why a lot of people are going to Rico Henry. I think if it was me and it was a defender I had to start, I'd be looking at the City boys first. I think I'd be looking at Gavardio or Ruben Diaz.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that their run is still ridiculous, and their defence is actually keeping clean sheets this season as well. So I think that's probably the way I'd look.
Do you
first.
trust Pep's selection back there, though?
What's that? Sorry.
Do you trust Pep to keep a kind of steady selection back there?
Yeah, I think Gavardio is ahead of Ake now. Although Ake could come in at any point. I think Ruben Diaz is the one, if you pay 0.5 more than Gavardio, he's the one that I think will just start pretty much every game now. He is the leader at the back now, isn't he? So I think he would start pretty much every game. Apart from that, it's really tough because not a lot of teams you can see are going to keep an awful lot of clean sheets. I'm just looking, Villa was always the one I quite like, that, but they're more from game week 5, maybe even later than that.
What about the Chelsea double up? Because you've got Chilwell and you've got Colwill, and presumably you're going to bring Colwill in for some of the fixtures. We'll look at your team in a bit, but surely a Chelsea double up's worth a go as well, isn't it? With Caicedo coming into the team, should firm them up a bit.
You'd think so, and obviously a lot of people did that with James as well. That the thing that's I think a lot of people are going for Gusto as well, which I kind of get with James maybe being out a little bit longer than we thought. I just don't know how to trust Chelsea yet. That's the biggest problem. I don't know whether they're going to be keeping clean sheets, but those fixtures can't be ignored. So I do get it. 4.5 million for someone like Colwill looks good. I think I'd probably pick Colwill above Henry, but I pick those City boys above them. Obviously, our mate Udogie.
I was just gonna say Udogie. Yeah, that seems to be how the commentators are going with him, and Magna points it out here. He's getting Udogie off the bench for sure. I don't think that's bad at Bournemouth, right? I was quite impressed with Spurs against United, and perhaps they're not going to be as wide open as we expected. And the run is all right. When I did the pre-season analysis, I was looking at maybe going Spurs over this run with Bournemouth, Burnley and Sheffield United. They got Luton in game week 8 as well. Obviously, Arsenal and Liverpool are tough games. But I don't think one of the Spurs thought that either a Porro or an Udogie is a bad bet at all. So I think it's a bit of a differential, a bit of a flair, but I like it. So I think there's options out there if you've got Shaw. And I like Udogie or Porro as a punt as well. I have gone with Gusto. So my moves are Gabriel to Gusto, Pedro to Alvarez. What do you make of his chances? Do you think he's okay for the next couple? Because that's how I look at it. It's a short-term move, but I think he's okay until at least the international break. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you're fine, and you're going to want him for that Luton and Nottingham Forest game, which you've got him for then, which is lovely. It's after the international break if all of a sudden in those 2 games maybe another 2 Chelsea players start looking good, or that's the thing where maybe it can kind of block you out of getting another one. But to be honest, is James definitely going to be back straight away?
I don't see him.
No, and they're going to take time. He's actually got an able deputy now. You know, they didn't really have that before.
Yeah.
And Chilwell's doing so well on the other side. And I mean, their squad is just stacked anyway, isn't it? So I think they're going to take time with him. So I think Gusto, you've got at least 3 game weeks out of him. So I think that's not too bad.
Greg's saying that Disasi and Caicedo could be a rival to him at right back. Disasi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, didn't have a good game at West Ham. For me, he looks too big, too muscular to play fullback. He might get that job against Luton if they fear the set pieces, but I can't see it. I think that Gusto will get. He didn't do anything wrong. He had a good pass completion rate. He had a steady game, whereas Disasi was almost at fault for one of the goals. So I think Gusto's okay, and I think short-term 4 million is a bit of a gift for those fixtures. And it enabled me to get Alvarez. It was exact money, so it was too tempting. I think that's fine. David Durbin says, thoughts on Alvarez, Foden and Jackson. And the reason why I picked this question out is because obviously City are making some moves, shall we say. They're looking at Núñez. They've made a signing in Doku already. They're looking at Núñez from Wolves. We're led to believe that personal terms have been agreed, and that looks like a goer with Wolves now seemingly a selling club. And they even mention of Eze as well. If you've got Foden and Alvarez, are you worried by those moves?
I was thinking about this the other day, and I looked into Count Doku quite a lot.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's primarily a winger, isn't he? He doesn't really operate in those central areas. He's that kind of flair winger.
He is a winger. He's the most winger I've seen for a while, actually.
I was looking at his heat maps, and it's just there's nothing in the middle. It's just all on the wings. And I think because of the way that Foden's maybe going to be used now, especially the way he played against Newcastle as well, he was so good in the middle of the pitch on the turn as well. And I'm hoping that's how he kind of gets used moving forward. And so I don't really see Doku being a threat to him. Núñez could be, but we've spoken about Foden so many times before, haven't we? And we've said, is this just who he is in the league now? You know, he is just that player that is never going to get continuous minutes, but he will shine when he gets them. I think I would prefer owning Foden to Alvarez.
Would you? Okay.
I think I would, just because I'm expecting him to probably get around the same minutes, but Foden I'm expecting to do more with the minutes he gets. I mean, Alvarez, he only had one shot, didn't he, against Newcastle? Obviously, he scored it, but he only had the one shot.
And his output's not been fantastic in terms of shots. If we bring up the forwards here, he's in terms of XG on penalty per 90, he's right down in 14th. He's having 2 shots per game, both in the box though. So his shots have been in good distance from the goal. His chance creation is actually very good. So I think he's had 8 chances created, and he's taken some set plays as well. The way I like him is because of that chance creation. If he gets an assist or a goal, he's likely to get 2 or 3 bonus points. I think because, as we know, people who do key passes, De Bruyne being a case in point, often churn the BPS and do very well. The other reason I like him is I think Pep needs him in the side. I think that when they lost Mahrez, they lost goals.
Yeah.
And I don't think Grealish, Foden or Doku are going to provide goals. If you look at Doku's goal scoring record, he's got 12 in, I think, 89 games in Ligue 1. So he's not a goal scorer. He's not Mahrez in that respect. Mahrez always had 10 to 15 goals in him if you played him week in, week out.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those players, Grealish, Doku or Foden, have got that. Maybe Foden could have. We haven't seen, bless him, we haven't seen Foden given the crack that we want him to have we? We haven't seen him get that 15, 20 starts one after another. I think if he can get that in that number 10 role, he can get double figures for goals, and he has done previously, and I think he could again. But I still think Alvarez is that striker, and I just think, you know what I mean? Pep has these love affairs with players, doesn't he? I think at the moment he's got a crush on Alvarez. I just feel that way about it.
He's a lovely price as well. I mean, it's one thing I think we mentioned pre-season is that he shouldn't be priced at 6.5 because if there's an injury to Haaland, he's essential, isn't he? So I feel like 6.5 is really cheap for him. So I do get it. I think my biggest thing is more of a structure where I'm happy to have Foden, Haaland, and then a City defender, as opposed to having Haaland and Alvarez as 2 of my striker spots. And that is just a structure thing. I think the last time I've ever owned 2 strikers from the same team was Sturridge and Suarez, which was years and years ago. So exactly. And that was good, by the way.
It was good. I remember that period when it was absolutely crazy and they were just scoring between them 3 or 4 goals a game.
Was it them and who was it else? Was it Yaya?
Yeah.
That was the same time.
Tremendous, wasn't it? The points
Aaron
generated.
Ramsey. Was it Aaron Ramsey?
Yeah, don't remind me. That was my worst season. I didn't know Ramsey or Yaya.
So it can work.
It's
whether you're expecting for 6.5 million. I mean, I do get it. I do get people making that move. And if I was going to be priced out, so if Pedro had gone down again or if Jackson had gone up, I think I'd just go Alvarez because the fixtures are lovely moving forward as well. And he's another one where using FPL team, every week I look at it, I'm like, I play Alvarez. I play Alvarez. And it does look good for quite a while.
There is that doubt, though, that is he going to drop out of the team? If I can get him in that team for Sheffield United, Fulham, West Ham and Forest and Wolves, that's a beautiful run of 5 games. When I read that out, I think, blimey, I really do want him for that. So it's like Jackson, isn't it? You look at him in your team and you think, I want him for that run. But unlike Jackson, I don't think he's totally nailed. I think he's okay in the short term. But once Europe kicks in, I don't know whether Alvarez will play in the European games. I think they're going to play Bernardo Silva and just Haaland up front on his own, and I think they'll compact the midfield. I think Pep likes to have Bernardo in his team in Europe, and we've seen that for the big games. So I don't think Alvarez gets in the Champions League team, which has made me go for him because I think therefore he's more likely to play the league game. But that's the thing is, we've all done this before, haven't we? We've all tried to get into the head of Pep, and it always ends in tears, basically. So,
and I will say as well, people always say it every year. They say, "I don't care. I love Alvarez. Even if he plays 3 of the 5 games, I'm going to be happy with it."
That's not true, is it?
It's not true. As soon as it happens, you are livid with yourself that you did it, because it will happen. And it happens every single year. And this is what I'm saying next week. I'm like, oh, do I get Foden? And Mbumo's staring at me in the face saying, I have not stopped scoring and I've got Bournemouth at home. Why don't you just go with me and my fixtures are nice?
I think if we see Brentford put a couple past Palace and Mbumo show up again, you can't. If Brentford struggle to break down Palace and it's 0-0 or 1-0 Palace or 1-1 and they get, I mean, Brentford will cause Palace problems at set plays, and if Brentford are going to score, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Pinnock or something like that from a set piece. Well, it's true, isn't it? Because
I just love that. I always think of Flappy when I think of Pinnock, because he went with Pinnock last year and he scored, didn't he?
Oh, what? Yeah. Well, if you get when you get a centre back and they come in, it's crazy, isn't it? But I do think, Palace, as we know, weak at set plays. So if there's a way to break that Palace defence down, it is at set pieces. And Brentford, probably the best components of set pieces in the Premier League, I would say. So that is likely to be their route to goal. So Mbumo would have to go missing in that game for me to not get him in game week 4, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm going to have to do it as well. It'll probably be Rashford down to Mbumo and then, upgrading someone else. But
I'm with you, I think, unless Richarlison has another stinker. And that's entirely possible. That's fine. So shall we look at our team, shall we? I'm going to bring your team up first because mine was shown last night. So you are going with, do you want to read it out, Andy, there?
Yes, so I've got Pickford in goal. I've got Chilwell, Saliba, Estupinan, and then Martinelli, Rashford, Matoma, Saka, Bruno Fernandes, Haaland, Pedro, Turner, Colwill, Shaw, and Osula on the bench. Right. I've got 1.5 in the bank and 2 free transfers.
You got to use one then.
Yes. See, that's the issue.
What are you going to do with it? Pickford, surely he's got to go, isn't he?
If I had no. If I had 1 free transfer, I think I would roll, and I'd be more than happy with rolling. But I really want 2 free transfers next week.
Well, it's Pedro to Jackson then, isn't it?
I've got to change my team so next week looks better. Pickford's been in my thoughts, but I can't move Pickford to anybody I want with the whole Pedro to Jackson.
Would you not, knowing the Shaw news, and we do know, don't worry, chat, we do know, knowing the Shaw news, would you not just make that move now? Because that's like a practical move, because you're going to have to get him out next week because he's going to start dropping, right?
I mean, whoever I bring in for him isn't going to get into that first 11. I mean, I'm benching Colwill and I'm expecting a Chelsea clean sheet.
Would you not go? No, I guess you're not. I was going to say, would you not go? You're benching Colwill, aren't you? So yeah, you're right. But then you get Shaw to a Porro, and then you've got Porro for next week, or a Doggy, and you've got a Doggy next week. Would you not do that?
No. I've always been that kind of manager where I make the move when I want to make the move, if that makes sense. So next week, because the worst thing ever is moving Shaw now.
City defender.
And then, that's the move I'm looking to make next week. Right. I think it would be Gavardio in or Ruben Diaz in.
But you wouldn't do Gavardio this week and play him over Pedro?
No. Because worst thing ever is Gavardio gets injured this week and I've got another move to make. I've got no intention of playing the player this week, and I don't think I would play Gavardio or Diaz over Chilwell, Saliba or Estupinan this week, or Colwill.
No. I mean, I made the mistake of benching Estupinan last week because I had that dilemma of I wanted Chilwell, of course. I wanted the Arsenal defender at Palace. They kept a clean sheet, but I got the wrong Arsenal defender. Don't know how that happened. It's almost as if I didn't get the news of Gabriel on day one.
Stop it.
And then I played Cash, who was my vanity sign. And that was my fault because I bought Cash and I gave myself that dilemma and fell into a trap where my Estupinan got a goal and assist. I don't think Estupinan is benchable now, is he? Which gives us a problem because when you look at Brighton's fixtures, there are fixtures where you would normally bench him, where you're now going to be absolutely petrified to do so, aren't you?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, because I've seen people get hurt benching him. So
yes.
So this week, I think I'm going to do Pedro to Jackson because it was the move I wanted to make anyway, and I don't like Pedro moving forward. It could hurt me this week, but I think over the next 6 weeks, I'll be absolutely fine doing that move. Personally, I think that's fine. And then I'm going to keep my 2 free transfers, and it's probably going to be Rashford and Shaw to Gavardio and probably in Mbumo, to be perfectly honest. And then I got a bit of money to get Trippier in Game Week 6 when I want to as well. I could even move Pickford out. That could happen as well.
You might still do
I feel
that.
like, not in the next 2 weeks, because I feel like the next 2 fixtures are actually quite nice for Pickford. It probably after that maybe. I mean, I just can't handle the messages from Az, to be honest. Every week he messages me going, just laughing emojis with Pickford next to it.
I know, I've got him as well. I think he sends me the same ones. It's torturous, isn't it? I don't know. Wolves at home, right? Let's talk about that game, because that game, neither of them can score a goal. Wolves have got Keane out. They'll have to play Fabio Silva up front. Nunez probably won't play. Well, Nunez is suspended, so he definitely won't play. Everton have got half a team in the physio room as well. It's going to be a tense, nervy affair with a lot of quality missing from those teams as well. I think Pickford could pull out a clean sheet in a 0-0 there.
Oh, I would love it. I would absolutely love it if he kept 2 clean sheets now. If he outscored Onana in the next 2 weeks, you won't hear the end of it. But, we picked Pickford because the fixtures were quite nice over a 6-week period, and he rotates really well with Turner. And again, looking forward, he really does rotate well with Turner. So, I think majority of this I'm happy with. I'm happy to keep Pickford for another 2 weeks. I'm not that fussed about making a keeper transfer. What am I going to get? 4 points maybe. So I think the majority of the team's fine. It's just, and I want to know whether you think the same, whether Pedro to Jackson really is the move, or whether I do that next week and I do something else with my team. But I don't see much else I want to do.
I think Pedro to Jackson probably is the move. I prefer Alvarez, but if Jackson's the one you want, I think it is. I think the fixtures for Jackson are stronger. And Pedro, I think of the comments that De Zerbi made. I think that with Ferguson, Welbeck as options, even Lallana could come into the thinking. He's still got options even with Enciso out. And for me, they've got goals all over that team. I mean, Pedro isn't the out-and-out source of goals. Well, I think Jackson probably is for Chelsea.
Yeah.
We don't really know what we're going to get from Luton. A lot of people are writing them off, and obviously we've got to say it's a good fixture, right? Luton lost 4-1 to Brighton in the first game, 3.25 XG conceded. They looked a lot what we expected, a promoted side who are going to struggle. So we've got to go on that, right? But it's so little to go on. They might put on a display, nick a goal at a set piece, and get a 1-0 win, right? But you've got to think over the 2 games Chelsea got, Luton and Forest, Jackson will profit. So I think I'd make that move, And you've got to do it tonight. Where are you with price rises? Because I've said my lot about them. Do you get twitchy about losing value and getting price rises as well?
Not massively. In my head, I always try and have 2 outs, if that makes sense. So if I want to go to Jackson and he goes up, I always want to think, well, that's fine. I can just get Alvarez. Like, I always think to myself, there's always another player you can get to. The only times I'll ever really move early is if there's no other outs. Like, there's nobody else I want and it just doesn't work any other way. So I feel quite happy. I might do it tonight. I feel like this is late enough in the week that we seem to have had all the injury news. So, and if
Shaw came in tonight though, didn't he? So,
well, yeah. Ideally, I'd wait till tomorrow because it's the first game. We might find out the team and then know for definite. But yeah, I feel like I could do it tonight if I needed to.
No, fair enough. Brief look at my team. We looked at it last night, so I won't dwell on it too much. It's Pickford, Gusto, the new signing, a Stupinan, Chilwell, so double Chelsea in that defence. Rashford, Richarlison, I know, tell me about it. Diaby, Saka, Salah, of course. We should talk about that before we go. Alvarez and Haaland captain. Got to be Haaland captain. I think City get at least 2 or 3 goals at Sheffield United. They'll try it. There'll be a lot of effort, but I think the quality gap is going to show. Then on the bench, Cash, Baldock and Mumbama. I'll be getting in Archer soon, I would have thought, but I probably might have to move out Matty Cash next week, depending if he plays this week, because it did look as though Konsa could take the right back role after he started there for Hibs. Let's talk about Salah. Let's go back to to close the show. Let's talk about Salah. Red herring. There's a lot of talk tonight. People saying, "Oh, well, they're just doing that because they're playing Newcastle and the Saudis are trying to disrupt it." What's your thoughts on this? Is there something in it?
Oh, I think there's something in it, definitely. And I think if the season hadn't already started and we were so late in the window, I think they probably would have sold him. 100 million for the age he is.
Is that the official offer? Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, and you think they would be mad to turn it down. It's the same with Kane, isn't it? But I think because if they sold him now, they just wouldn't be able to get anybody else in, like literally anybody. So, and they've already struggled to bring players in, I think, this season. So, in terms of FPL, I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think they're selling him anyway. So I think that's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
but
right.
I kind of understand people keeping Salah.
Yeah.
But if you've got 2 free transfers, he's such an easy cash cow. Like, he really is. And
Yeah,
you look
he
at,
is,
your team. You said you just don't have the money. Like, I've got 1.5 in the bank. I can move things around. But Salah's just taken up all that money for you, isn't he?
He is, but the way I look at it is like Salah can score against anyone because Liverpool can score in any game, right? So I don't look at Newcastle away and think, oh, he's definitely going to blank. Probably, he might well do, but he could easily get something from that game. And then the run is pretty good. I mean, it's Brighton. Sorry, it's not Brighton away. I'm looking at Liverpool's fixtures. I'm looking for. Where are they? I've lost them on the track.
Newcastle away, Villa at home.
Oh yeah, okay.
Wolves
so
away.
Villa at home, Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham, and Brighton. That run of Villa, Wolves, West Ham isn't bad at all. Villa are strong, but I would fancy Liverpool at Anfield to score in that game. Wolves away is very strong. They struggled there last year, but I just don't see it the way that Wolves are dismantling their team. And West Ham at home, there should be goals in it there. So keeping Salah for that run, if I can, could be really good. But it's whether or not I can. It's whether or not I can scrimp by with no money in the bank. Gusto is a good enabler to get me, to get me Alvarez. If I have to get rid of cash, I'll have to go down to maybe I don't know if Henry's gone up to 4.6. I've got to look around the 4.5 market. So I am really scrimping, aren't I? It's bottom of the barrel stuff until I sell Salah. But if I sell Salah, I'm like every other team. And so at the moment, I'm kind of like, well, that's my big, potentially explosive differential. The debate is he explosive? Do you buy into this he's not the same player yet theory?
Not massively, if I'm perfectly honest. And he's on pens as well. And
Is he?
Yeah. So, well, yeah. I'm assuming he is. He's still, to me, don't get me wrong, he's not the same player to maybe what he was 3 years ago. The team is completely different. Him, Firmino and Mane, it was absolutely ridiculous, wasn't it? But I still feel he's one of the most explosive players in the game. And considering we have lost Kane, who was one of the other most explosive players of the game, you don't have an awful lot of players like that left. And if he left as well, I mean, the FPL landscape would just be like it hasn't been before, hasn't it? Like, we literally only have Haaland.
It'll be real blow, I think, if Salah went, because I think that yes, we'd all be flooded with money. People are saying, "Oh, it'll give us more variety." I'm not sure it would.
No, I don't think it would. And someone like you just put on the chat there, Jack Flesh Poet says Salah is the only reliable second captain. That's it. You're looking across the league and thinking, I don't know who else I can have that can get me, the 19-pointer. And it's really, I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't know either. And it would just be...
When's that going to come into play? When looking at Man City's next 5, it's not going to come into play the next 5.
No.
So it's not a factor,
true.
Is it, at the moment? I don't know. I think it would be a massive shame to lose Salah from the Premier League. I mean, the exodus to Saudi is affecting the Premier League at the moment. We've lost some good players. But Salah is royalty of the Premier League, right? Not only FPL. So I don't want Salah to leave as a football fan, right?
But I mean, the thing is, it works for so many people in terms of Salah gets paid a absolutely ridiculous amount, and he's closer to home as well. You've got Liverpool, who are cashing in 100 million on a player. They would never have got 100 million for him at this age as well. But like you said, the people that lose out of the Premier League and FPL. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't think he goes, personally. I think he'll go at the end of the year.
No, I don't either. No, it's all good. Right, we've almost done an hour, Andy. So sorry to keep you, but that was... we said, didn't we, when we did our members chats for Scout, we could go on all night, and we could probably keep going, but we shouldn't because we've got families and stuff to sort and work tomorrow and all that kind of boring normal stuff that we've got. Life, that's what they call it. I remembered. But it's been a pleasure as always, and I won't be texting you about Pickford at the weekend. I'll be texting you, well done, Andy, if you get another good score. But that won't last if you keep beating me.
Yeah, you have never texted me that.
Shush, pretend that I'm a nice person, right? Az has to do this. He signed the contract that he's got to pretend I'm really nice and not say anything that I send him WhatsApp.
You got a contract?
Yeah, I had to get him to sign something. Otherwise, he'd let all my secrets out.
No, true.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for watching tonight. I think we had about 1,200 viewers live, so that's fantastic. Great turnout. If you enjoyed tonight's laid-back chat in the late tackle, then please throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, and thanks for any of those who will join as members. If you want to really support the channel, join as a member. Much obliged for all of that. And also the Football Content Awards, we plugged it yesterday. I haven't got the link, but if you Google Football Content Awards, go and nominate us for some of those categories, because Az loves those awards, and he wants to go up and get the third one running.
Do I get to go up now as well?
I'll tell you what, we might need someone if we do win it, and I don't think we will. But if we do, we will need someone to go up. So we're Az and I are thinking, who can we get to go up? No, that's a bit arrogant. We're not going to win it. But in case we do, we need someone to go up. But yeah, if you fancy it, Andy, you're not doing anything. But we'll see. No, brilliant. So pleasure again. I'm not going to be around next week, so Andy, you'll need to find somebody else to do this with. You know what I'm doing. I'm going to a music festival, and I know what you're going to say. You're too old, right? But I'm not.
I wasn't going to say that. Is it the Wurzels?
No, it's not. Is that in that part of town? I'm going to End of the Road Festival, so I'm going to be at this time. Where would I be? Probably watching the main stage, and
nice.
Can't think who's on. But anyway, I'll be living up with some kids in a field watching some bands. So I think you'll need to get stand-in for me next week. Maybe Az can do it with you, but I'll miss you, and I'll see you when I get back, and I look forward to the next late tackle in a few weeks' time. Stuff. It's a good night from me. Much.
You had a good night from me.